From Sputnik to the Hubble Space Telescope to the International Space Station, satellites have innovated our lives and have had an incredible impact on the global community. With advancements in rocket technology coming out of World War II, satellites and space exploration became a feasible option for major government powers. These innovations led to the advent of the space race and the launch of the world's first satellite, Sputnik. Satellites had a colossal impact throughout the Cold War and guided the world into a terrifying period of modern warfare. Beyond this, satellites have been used to protect the global community from nature's destructive force by aiding meteorologists in weather prediction. They have also launched the Earth into an era of global communication and education. The innovation of the satellite launched a chain reaction of impacts and changes throughout science and history. Innovations and changes in technology quickly began to occur more and more frequently during and after World War II. When Germany was finally defeated in 1945, the Allied countries quickly scrambled to take German scientists. Throughout the war, relations between the United States and the Soviet Union were tense, so both sides started secret military projects which involved these newly acquired scientists. With V-2 rockets being used in World War II, intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, became possible, thus creating international threats from above and in space. Research was being conducted by both sides so that they might win the space race, and with this, the Cold War was underway. Although the United States had managed to bring scientists such as Wernher von Braun to their aid, the Soviet Union claimed the first actual achievement in the space race, with the launch of the artificial satellite, Sputnik, into space. Sputnik, or Sputnik in Russian, literally means satellite or traveler, and was launched into space on October 4, 1957. Although Sputnik did not serve much on its own, the simple design with a radio transmitter gave the whole world proof that the Soviet Union actually launched a satellite into space. Sputnik meant that the Soviet Union had the capability to launch ICBMs and other weapons of mass destruction. In a time of great worry in the Cold War, these were scary and realistic possibilities. Eventually, the United States would launch artificial satellites of their own, beginning with the launch of Explorer 1 on January 31, 1958. The space race itself started with the launch of an artificial satellite into orbit around the Earth, and would then shift to international races of putting a man into space, and later a man on the moon. Since the Cold War was very much a secretive and political war and competition, satellites were ways for the public to judge how the war was progressing ever since the launch of Sputnik. Satellites would remain to be primary tools and weapons throughout the Cold War and past it. With the space race serving as a public distraction for the United States to continue their work on spy satellites, the CIA started the Corona Project. The project was created in June of 1958 with the primary objective of taking pictures of the major communist powers in Asia. These satellites were ahead of their time and were equipped with state-of-the-art imagery devices which could clearly see anything on the Earth within 7.5 meters. As advanced as these satellites were, they did have their flaws. The only way to retrieve the imagery was to have the satellites drop a capsule into the ocean, which contained all the data collected. This proved to be extremely unreliable, and many of these capsules containing precious data were lost. The information that was retrieved from the Corona satellites about the communists' technology was alarming. Imagery taken by the Corona satellites confirmed that the Soviet Union had the capability to reach the United States with ICBMs. Even with all of the failures that the CIA experienced, the Corona satellites were considered a success due to the amount of data they were able to collect. They proved to be a valuable resource and had a huge impact on the Cold War. The United States wasn't the only country launching secret satellites into the sky. The Soviet Union was hard at work improving their own satellite technology. The Soviets' first satellite series was called Cosmos. Cosmos 1 through 9 were mainly used as test platforms for the future projects. The functions of these 9 satellites ranged from geological surveys to spying on enemies. In 1967, Soviet scientists came out with another program called Radar-Equipped Ocean Reconnaissance Satellites, or RORSAT. This project was merged with Cosmos, and from then on, all Cosmos satellites were equipped with RORSAT utilities. And the main use of the RORSAT satellites was for monitoring NATO and merchant vessels, which was suspicious because the USSR was not a part of NATO at that time. Throughout the Cold War, the Soviet Union and the United States did a very thorough job ensuring that these satellites didn't become public knowledge. Not all satellites launched during the Cold War were kept secret, though. NASA and other national weather administrations teamed up to create the Television Infrared Observation Satellite Program, or TIROS project. These satellites were originally a test to see if they could be used to study the Earth, and TIROS proved to be one of NASA's most successful projects. The TIROS project changed how weather was forecasted, and provided meteorologists with a new and accurate way to forecast the weather. The first group of TIROS satellites lasted from April 1960 to June 1968, and were numbered 1 through 10, becoming more advanced as the satellites became more successful. TIROS transmitted back radar at regular intervals and provided meteorologists with accurate data. The new weather satellites had such a big impact on weather forecasting that launches of the new TIROS satellite were strategically timed so that they would be fully functional for that year's hurricane season. In 1961, Hurricane Esther became the first hurricane to be discovered by a satellite, proving the capabilities and the impact of the weather satellites. Satellites today have become a modern marvel and have an enormous impact on the global community. Modern satellites have helped scientists make great leaps in science, expanding our knowledge on how our world functions, though satellites haven't always been focused toward our Earth. The Hubble Space Telescope has been observing galaxies millions of light years away since 1990. Hubble has expanded our knowledge on how stars are created, how they die, distant galaxies, the science of black holes, and the universe as a whole. Hubble has not only enlightened us about the universe, but it has also sent back some of the world's most stunning photographs. The International Space Station, or ISS, has also been providing us with a plethora of knowledge of space's effects on us and other organisms in space. The ISS is currently the largest satellite orbiting the Earth and the only place where human habitation is not on Earth. Due to the scale of such a project, the ISS has become a joint operation between the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and more. Scientists have also brought organisms into space, such as plants, and have tested whether they are still able to function properly without gravity. Other experiments are being conducted as we speak, covering subjects anywhere from the effects of solar radiation to experimentation with varieties of organisms. Science and the military have often worked with each other, from building better weapons to funding projects that could help or hurt people. It is this way with satellites as well. From the dawn of satellites with Sputnik to current times, one of the leading uses of satellites has been for military purposes. Today, many of the actual uses of these satellites are classified, but some functions of military satellites include nuclear monitoring and early warning of missile launches. Although the technology and the functions have greatly changed since early satellites, the military has greatly used satellites to its advantage. Even with these great windows of opportunities opened by satellites, they are still filled with flaws. At the moment, there are tens of thousands of satellites orbiting around the Earth, and space is becoming limited. In February of 2009, 2 satellites collided, marking the first satellite collision, with the expected rate of collisions to increase. Satellites can also be hacked, which can lead to valuable government information falling into the hands of the wrong people. Even with these downsides of satellites, the pros outweigh the cons, and it is apparent that the innovations of satellites are deeply rooted in today's society. Because satellite technology has become more and more advanced, satellites have had an impact on our lives in more than just a military and political way. Famous satellites like Telstar and Intelsat are just some of the few commercial satellites that allow us to live as we do. While weather satellites allow us to accurately predict the weather and prepare ourselves for it, other satellites allow us to access this information, by television or internet, for example. In traveling places, many people and companies use global positioning satellite devices for help with directions.
GPS, which we all need now, was developed for military purposes so that they could know where everybody is. If you're on a battlefield, you want to know where all your people are. Or you want to know where you are relative to where they're going to fire that mortar round. And so GPS started as a military invention, but Clinton, as a president, decided to even make it available and even release the high resolution so that he saw the great civilian benefit of it.
News companies are able to increase efficiency in transmitting news, articles, and other information by using satellites. While all of these things are conveniences to the everyday person, satellites are also used by emergency services to track emergency radio beacons from airplanes or ships in distress. Satellites have become major commercial, scientific, and military tools in these modern times, and have a large impact in almost everything that we do. The future that lies ahead of us is one where satellites will continue to assist the human race to expand farther than could ever be imagined.